And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. Lord Griot here to tell you a story.
As opposed to a state of war or martial law, to downplay the scale of Ukrainian incursion into Kursk Oblast and prevent domestic panic or backlash, demonstrating the Kremlin's reluctance to take more drastic measures to respond to the situation. Huh? Reluctance to take more dramatic. Yeah, remember, this is also a special military operation. It's not a war. It's this little thing. You can go to jail still for calling it a war. Okay, Russians flee the Kursk region. Over 8,000 people are evacuated during the day. That's those that are evacuated during the day. That's not those who have voluntarily evacuated. Uh, Earlier, Putin said that the people would be helped to evacuate. The local governor declared that there is no need to panic, but the people are panicking, and there's a reason for that. Russian media outlet Kommersant reports from Kursk, and the quotes are telling. People feel abandoned, lied to, disillusioned with government. They harbor hatred for the West, but doubts are creeping in about whether they can actually win this war. I mean, special military operation. I thought we would take them, Ukraine, but it turns out they're taking us, Russia. Or ordinary people are watching this and thinking, quote, did you really plan to win a war with people like this? Another quote, I just want to understand, where is our government? Where's the administration? They could at least talk to us. Another quote, why was there no evacuation at all? Everyone was fleeing on their own, however they could, under shelling, under kamikaze drones. Another quote, why did they lie on TV until the very end, saying the situation was stable, that it was just a small sabotage group? Like, it's almost like they believe their own lies have power. Like they believe that if we just say this, it will be true, or it will change the situation somehow, where it didn't at all. They have lied like this about Ukraine for so long that they're almost in magical thinking land. Okay, Gary Kasparov wrote this. As during Prigozhin's mutiny, paralysis in a novel situation. Now that's really interesting. You know what to do when there's a prescribed situation, but when it's novel and you have to wrestle with it, what do? And authoritarian regimes are not well suited for this kind of thing. There's only one decision maker in a dictatorship. Everyone is afraid of saying or doing something they'll be accountable for. So every consequential decision must go to Putin, who becomes a bottleneck. Like everything has to go to him, and then if he doesn't decide, or if he decides on a course, thing narrative must be approved. And so this authoritarians are really quick and slow in others, and this is the slowness being seen right now. That's what's happening here. Okay, just now, Kursk region, another unit of Russian conscripts reported to have surrendered as prisoners of war. State Duma urged not to expect a quick victory over Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region. Why? They're lowering expectations. Euromaidan Press even said, important to manage expectations. That's exactly the kind of thing that's happening here. Okay, and then we saw this the same kind of thing yesterday, where um, we saw the tearing down the Russian flag where they were. Well, here they are putting up the Ukrainian flag as they're going through as well. Okay. Now, last little bits here before I get to something fun. Putin and Lavrov repeatedly said any negotiation between Russia and Ukraine have to be based on the new realities on the ground, and these new territorial realities to be recognized globally. Well, there are new realities on the ground at this point. Okay, just for fun, I put, given everything you know about me, what would my name be?
Now, just take all that, what that guy said, and plug in religion, right? Yeah. Religion is Russia. Um, God is Ukraine. No. But I just came from church, and basically, people are getting tired with me talking about love and forgiveness, right? And people are getting tired of hearing from me about, we need to pull together and define what our community is, and we have to embrace our brothers and sisters, and I was told summarily not to say that. So we look at our political, right? We have Donnie and whatever his name is, and what's her name and what's his name, and I say, Donnie is telling people not to vote. That he's got it in the bag, right? Because over the last 4 years, Republicans have taken state legislatures and taken the people who represent the electoral college in each of those states and put them in their pocket. So no matter who votes for who, these people are going to say Donald Trump. Now, it's interesting about Donald Trump. I mean, he's getting, from the beginning. I mean, his own rep. See, the thing is, both these guys are being used, and this is the one thing that no one is talking about. They're not talking about that there's a higher order of power, right? That is higher than even what Stan Lee was talking about, Hail Hydra, higher than that. Basically, what we have is we have an oligarchy that's in space. So, about 7 months after, um, Al Gore won the election against George H. Bush and Dick Cheney, right? But he lost in the electoral college. They jiggered that, and they got Dick and Georgie Porgy in there, right? And so they were already running the government into the ground, right? We were having the essence of the dot-com bubble busting and the market tanking and people losing their jobs. And so there was an article in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about how 2.3 trillion with a T had been lost in the Defense Department just in the 6 months of the Dick Cheney, George W. Bush administration. And what you can say what you want about Billy Boy, but he basically slashed. I mean, he made Ronald Reagan look like a liberal. You know, you know, made Nixon look like a progressive. I mean, Nixon created Act and the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act and the OSHA and kind of nailed down um, voters' rights, right? And then his second administration started, and he kind of lost his cookies. He was kind of basically set up because the people in the continuation of government, which is the hidden hand or the deep state in our government, right? It's not the liberals, you know. So Donald Trump, actually, when he was in there, he attempted to, first of all, he didn't expect to win the election, right? And but he did, right? And so he's put in there on purpose by this higher, hidden hand, higher table. Um, and these people are off planet. They're on the moon. They're in the asteroids. That's where that $2.3 trillion is going. That's where all the money that was, the value added of this country from 1948 till 2008 has been sucked out because basically Tesla technology and others who developed anti gravity and zero point energy, which period would bring peace to the earth because we won't have to burn anything, right? We could get from here to there without any disruption of the environment, right? And there were other, all during that period between 1870 and 1910 was an amazing period of it was like the renaissance of the United States progressive mind. That's where unions took hold. That's where people started, like you look at Carver, doing all this amazing research. Um, he basically his plant wasn't the peanut; it was hemp, right? And he showed that you could make from hemp than you could from drilling oil wells, and that hemp would burn much cleaner, right? Anyway, um, and you can make plastics from it. He's the guy who invented plastic. I mean, he doesn't get any credit for any of this. They just call him Mr. Peanut. And there were hundreds of other men and women. If you go to the Library of Congress and go into the patent library, and you look at all the patents that were brought forth, right? And they all were dealing with electrical devices and free energy devices, and basically those patents end up being owned by corporations, and the people who invent them are disappeared. And so we are like entering into this motif, and it's not like we haven't been here. In the 50s, we had the Hey Miss Maggie. We had basically blackballing anybody who said anything, right? And the Roy Cohen, who was the architect of that, was the teacher to Donald Trump. And see, Donald Trump had this position almost ordained, and he was basically putrefied by elements outside of where he was heading, right? And first, his father was not the nicest guy, and Donald seemed to, follow that path. And the interesting guy is Barron. What's Barron Trump going to do? So he's entering college. He's probably there his first year, I think. I don't know where he's going, but he's a person. There's a book that was written in the 19th century called The Amazing Journey of Baron Trump. So when religions go on about, their sacred books and their magic religion, well, it, you can make anything out of anything, right? And so there's two of you there. There's one thumbs up. So basically, all of this stuff in the like the church around here, and basically what I'm seeing about the churches is that they've been infiltrated by the you know what do you call those guys, the businessmen council, right? The bankers, and the mob has come in here and dumped billions of dollars into developing this place, and it is a really, like, one of the church ladies, we were talking about this, and she said that God gave the earth for Adam to conquer. Really? I thought he was supposed to be a steward. A big difference between conquering, extracting, and being a steward. And it seems everyone is going into that extraction motif, right? And the kids are being lost. I see them, they're being pushed. All the smaller schools have been closed, and the kids have been pushed into these big, prison schools in the county seats. And instead of having 10 kids to a teacher, they're having 60 to the teacher. And instead of being with their buds who they've grown up since a baby, out in the woods and frolicking and having a great time, they're having to deal with the urban bullies, right? So anyway, so there are a whole bunch of kids I saw, and they just had this dead look in their eye. They were not happy. They were not happy about going to school, where they used to be excited and overjoyed, and school is the best thing they ever did. Not now. So I see this sadness just coming down on my area, and my area is everywhere I go. I used to get paid to be a demographer, and everywhere I go, there is this darkness falling. Let's see. Okay. Eamon Hillman. Tell me about Eamon Hillman. I'm interested. Fire Drake 009. Uh, do. What else can I say? Come on. You just can't lay down. Okay. I have to look it up, eh? Okay. Come on. Boo. Eamon Hillman. Dr. C. MS in bacteriology and PhD in classes from University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he specialized in ancient Greek. Man, I'll have to look this. Let's see. The man who turned the word purple is unstoppable. Okay, let's see why he's unstoppable. Uh, Eamon Hillman's lecture, Christ Saves. It's been about 30 days since I first encountered DC Eamon Hillman on Danny Jones' ridiculously censored for YouTube. In this recording, which is available uncensored to Danny's Patreon subscribers, we learn a bit about Hillman's origins, indicating passions and perspectives. During the interview, Jones appears a bit disoriented and spooked. There's some kind of thunderstorm happening outside, as if of ancient gods. Eerily appropriate. Danny is entirely unprepared for what he's about to experience. As usual, he's thinking in terms of theories and ideas. Most of his questions don't actually gel because he has no experience of anything like Hillman. Really, I have to find out who this Hillman. See, let's go back to this. Let's see if that does anything. Hmm? Histrionic histories. When Jones asked him about the origins of his interest, which should more accurately be posed as obsession, Hillman tells us that they all began with Jesus. They felt urgency to understand who Jesus was. This naturally leads him into various evangelical situations and conflicts throughout his youth, which are relatively tangential to his present state of mind and thought. Eventually, he begins to study ancient Greek under master classicist, who tells him the three most crucial things uh, to keep in his mind as he pursues his education. Primary sources. You can probably guess the third one. Let's see. John Schottendorf, University of Wisconsin. Hillman's reverses mentor, reveres his mentor, John Scortenborough, University of Wisconsin. But he's telling us in this he was trained to ignore opinion and theory. and particularly people who specialize in religious studies. Classical philologists laugh at scholars of religious studies because they don't master the basics. Don't tell me what uh, Syracuse said. Don't tell me what Homer said unless you can read what Homer said. Very true. That's why I was taught Greek. He adjures us to forget interpretations provided by secondary and tertiary texts. To go, so one would call the King James Bible a tertiary text. Hillman studies a broad variety of such sources, but specifically highlights Gallion, who wrote some 20,000 pages of rarely examined surgical, pharmaceutical, medical material, which Hillman purchased a copy from St. Mary's College and Gnomes. He also pays significant attention to Pendor, Ovid, and Acrylas, among others. Yep, all great Greek um, authors, playwrights, poets, scientists, theorists, philosophers. One of the seminal personal origin stories of Ammon involves his dissertation on the Roman use of pharmacological substances. Apparently, no one had written anything meaningful on that topic, and Hillman's master thesis involved a translation and commentary, which he didn't want to repeat over a period of about 2 years. He wrote a general text so that readers could understand more about the context and use of drugs in the Roman world, probably taking place 200 BCE to 200 AD. In this preamble, he speaks of incredible physical and emotional complexities of ancient life, by which he means injuries, disease, death, insanity. Women dying of childbirth was extremely common. Pregnancy wasn't merely an ordeal, it was directly an encounter with death. But war, famine, and communicable diseases and other misadventures took their toll on nearly everyone. And this is what's coming, kids. This is what's coming. Let's see, what do you guys think here? You're right about the Greek, ancient Greek. Lady Babylon. Yep. Lady Babylon YouTube channel. Amon Hellman, Danny Jones. Okay. I'll do all the above. Um, let's see. I can always go back to this. It's in my little memory of things. Let's see. Lady Babylon YouTube channel. Lady Babylon's channel is dedicated to the Queen of Many Names and her cup of admonition. Together they will. So people also search for Lady Babylon YouTube channel age. Who is the Master Lady Society is repeating the mystery of Babylon, Babylon in me, Hail Barat, living in Babylon. Let's see. Interstanding Lady Babylon channel. Okay, let's give that a shot.
This kind of a shirt. This kind of a shirt is an undershirt to me. But, I was at the gym or whatever, and, I usually wear t-shirts, and thus all my band shirts or my cool shirts are t-shirts. I don't have a whole lot of long sleeve shirts that are something, right? So here I am in Adidas, which is only metal if you're new metal. Otherwise, Adidas is totally not metal. Anyway, it has to be new metal or rap metal. And rap metal, as well as new metal, is a mixed bag. And one way or the other,
I don't know who this guy
asking
is,
for
so we're
something
gonna we're gonna sip up here. Let's see what
their
he says.
humanity, and they allow it to break. Right? This is stuff that you see being represented in the Loki series, and you're very much looking at, because it's about fascism and shit. You know, you're looking at, you got the time Nazis in the Loki series, and you've got Loki simultaneously working for them and against them at the same time, because his disposition and his position, with the nature of the matter of fact of his cunning and intelligence, he actually sees things that other people can't see, and is things that other people don't understand. And therefore, it takes a long time for you to trust.
Okay, not this guy. Okay, you're right. He seems more like a TV show.
It's supposed to be Odin. Odin is
Enough of that. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Amon Hillman, Lady Babylon. Okay. Amon Hillman, Lady Babylon. Let's see what this is. Who is Lady Babylon? What is this he said about having? Let's see. Lady Babylon, play all.
What's in your stomach? Getting crazy on the moonshine. When you fumble something, the little bits that you give to the goddess. Athena follows Theseus around. She makes the best of science to be what the woman. Kristen with aphrodisiac. Once you are out, producing the theory. He's talking about the woman who eats her own children. Future. Hot purple. Letitia work you. Hot purple. Hot purple. Hot purple. Letitia work you. Hot purple. Hot purple.
Okay, so obviously this guy is talking about bald guy. Yes. So he's talking about things that no one talks about, right? He's talking about things that are foundational, right? Whereas Jesus Christ as the King James version of God and Jesus are not. They are basically Walmart's version of history, right? And everyone looks at the Jews as, Adam. No, Adam was, Jews did not start until Moses. They weren't Jews. They were Hebrew tribes, the 12 tribes, but they weren't Jews. And, so the Bible if you read the Bible, it is a great. It's an interesting tool. That's what it is, right? And it's a device. What's truly interesting about the Bible, that especially well in the Old and New Testament, if you take um, let's look at the Old Testament. If you take the Torah and look at it in Greek, you will see you can do it in Greek or Hebrew, but Greek is more definitive in its definitions and discussions of the Torah. But as the original Jewish script in Hebrew, um, every letter, like most languages, is defined by a number. And what's truly interesting is if you take every verse in the Old Testament and you take the vowels and the consonants, and they're derivative of each other, and they equal seven. They always equal seven. And the most used number is seven. Seven cups, seven seals, seven trumpets, seven terror. It's seven Virgil. It's seven. Right? What is that seven? And you can't understand that without going to the Babylon. And so, what do you say about that? Firebright 900. Jesus practiced corruption, twisted linguistics. Yep, yep, yep. So, I wish that you would expand on this. Jesus practiced uh, preset corruption, right? Uh, uh, Septurian cipher. Hmm. Septarian cipher.
Here's the definition of cipher. A secret is a way of
Okay, so it's a code. Tells the ancient Greek Jesus practice corrupted magic. Okay. Yeah, seven. So, those 30 years that, Jesus is born in Bethlehem, this king wants to whack him because the three prophets came and said, "Hey, where's this new king? It's in the stars. Here he is. And the guy, oh, really? I want to say hello to him too. And why don't you come back and tell me where he is?" And so, that king basically puts out an order to kill every child, every male child in this age group, right? And so after he's born, Joseph and Mary have to hit the road, right? And so they go into Egypt. That's as far as they can go to get away from, this guy wants to kill Jesus. So, Bob, watch Eamon Hillman. Okay, I will. I will take my time because there's so many great things on the internet. There really are. I mean, I feel better, meaning the kind of blowback I get when I talk like this. I don't really get it. I mean, it's really insignificant to what other people get, and that's all right. And in person, when people who have known me over I've been here 25 years, and I've done all kinds of different things with different people, and so people definitely have an opinion on Al Bob. And when they tell me to cool my jets, I say fine, sure, okay, no problem, and then I just continue doing what I'm doing. And it right. So I hadn't really gone to church in the last few Sundays because every time, I don't want to drive in the rain. So if it's raining, I don't go. Right. If I wake up and I live way down the holler, so the light starts to somewhat come into my man cave, and I wake up, and it's at the earliest, it's 9 o'clock. So 9:30. So like this Sunday, I woke up at 9:30 and got to the church around 10:10. A few minutes late, and the minister was waiting for me. He spent 10 minutes waiting for me to show up, and he said, "You can come to church here. You just can't say anything. You can't talk." I said, "I've come to for fellowship to talk about um, the Bible," and he said, "You can't." He said, You can talk afterwards. You can talk to people later, but not during fellowship." So I said, "Okay," and I went basically up to I walked in, and I went in the back of the church, and the minister came and sat behind me. I didn't take the last seat in the church, but he sat right behind me. So if I said anything, he could whack me in the head or something. And so they went on teaching, and we had this nice little book. Where is it? Do I have it here? I guess I don't. Anyway, very nice little guide. And if we were to just read that and follow that, but the two guys who talk, and one guy goes on and on, and just meaning they give. So, like we were talking about, Psalm and David, and mostly Jonathan, King Saul's son, right? Everyone liked him. He was going to be, he was the oldest next in line. But God said, nope, David's going to be king after he slain, became the dude, right? And so everyone was down with that. And see, there was a relationship between John and David. And, you know, as it's described, it's almost homosexual. Now, no one even wants to go there, right? So if we go into the Greek, we look at what relationship do they have. It is the, um, you know, platonic relationship. About all, I don't know how many of you guys or gals have experienced loving someone and totally loving them and not being sexual about it, right? And so, and that is what this story basically was about love, right? And so they were talking about killing and death and God's wrath, and in reality you read about God. He is not a wrathful God. I mean, the Jews do all of this stuff for hundreds of years, and God's just going, oh, come on, what about our little pact we had? We're supposed to be buddies here. You're supposed to you know, lighten up on all of the sinning stuff, and come on, you can do it. I know. I have faith in you. I mean, faith isn't ours to have; it's God's to give, right? Watch. I'm going to. I'm going to. Right. But this is a live chat. I want you to kind of, I respect your passion for the insights of Dr. Hillman. So, but I want to hear your perspective. So come on. So Jesus practiced uh, corrupted magic, right? So my study of those subjects, um, magic is more or less a science, right? I mean, esoteric and occult. Esoteric means um, knowledge, hidden knowledge, and occult is well, one is like knowledge for like the people the high table knowledge, the hidden hand knowledge. That's esoteric. Occults is the hidden knowledge, right? And not everyone can have. You have to kind of go through ceremony and you have to go through experience, right? And that's why, when God brought the Hebrews out of Egypt, right, and said, go over here. And they went over and looked and said, oh, no, that's scary. There's big giants in there, blah, blah. And God said, no, 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 God, I got your back. They didn't believe, they didn't have faith. They couldn't do it. So God put them out in the middle of the desert for 40 years to go through. I mean, every day their sandals never wore out. Their clothes never wore out. They never really aged or got sick. And there was always food. They had a meal every day, right? From the manna from God, right? And so that was a ceremony, a 40-year-long ceremony, right? And no one, they just said, oh, that they were out there bouncing around, blah, blah, blah. And, um, so, Moses, as they were traveling there, went up to the mountain and spoke to God. God said, I'm bad. I didn't, after you left the garden, this millennia that you've been just stumbling around, you've just been getting worse and worse. And it's not really your fault because I gave you no parameters, no guardrails. So I'm giving you 10 commandments. Just stay inside of those and you'll be fine. And so, Moses came down with those. And what do they do? Building a golden, bull to, you know, worship. So anyway, so they got rid of that. They got more on the base, and it was like 3 million of them. So it's hard to like pull those folk anywhere. Or have it's like herding cats. I mean, if you ever hung out with Jewish folk, you realize that. That's why they have the super Orthodox, and inside of that you had Lubavitcher, Hasidim, and a bunch of others, and then you have the Orthodox, then you have the Reformed, and then you have you know it's more than 12 tribes, right? And so let's see, golden bullshit corpse, corruption, demon. Oh, that kind of okay. So that is, the closest thing our audience can represent to this is Frankenstein, right? Or if any of you folk are Jewish and understand the Kabbalah, there's this thing called a golem, which is the Jewish version of Frankenstein. You make it, you do a, and that's what science is. It's a ceremony, right? One man's science is another man's religion, right? And another man's, oh my God, bringing the dead to life. Yes. Okay. And see, Jesus wasn't the only guy out there doing that, right? That's the real deal, right? Resign, evil will live. You got to expand on that one, because evil is a presence that isn't really real. It's part of the illusion that we have of this world. None of this, you, everything else is not real. It's an illusion. Once we stepped out of the garden, and that was on our own account. That's on our own nickel. God knew that was going to happen. God wanted it to happen. Nothing happens. See, Christians going, nothing happens unless God makes it happen. Well, that's just very true. Live, evil, live. Okay, thank you. I'm a little slow sometimes. Yeah. And so, yes. And so that's why we're living in evil. See, that one line is mind-boggling. Audience, come on, audience, get to it. Thank you, Fire Drake 009. Live backwards evil, meaning, well, we're not living. We're living this corrupt magic shit, right? And that's why none of this shit matters. These wars, this death. I mean, why are we having all these wars? Why are we having the economic? We live on a planet of goodness and bounty, and like in frigging church today, this lady went on and on about how God's wrath and he's going to kill everyone and lake of fire, and I couldn't say anything till after the thing. And I went over and I said, I want to compliment you because the two morons who teach the class, they just pick somebody to read the scripture, not to comment on what the scripture means. This lady did, right? And she did a great job, right? So I went over and I said, I want to thank you for your insightful insight. And then we started talking, and she was like appreciative. I could tell her husband, I patted him on the back, and energetically, I could sense that this guy has lived with this woman, and it's like, and the minister is wearing a business suit, right? Everyone else, I'm the homeless guy look, and this guy is just a few notches below the minister, white pressed, starched collar, tie, clean shoes. I mean, the rest of the guys are kind of in their Carhartts and working boots and stuff, right? Or their fishing clothes, right? They just come back from fishing. So, and they all go in there, and so the chuckleheads pick someone to read um, the verse, and they read it like this without any kind of feeling. When I read it, I kind of do it theatrically, and to give people a sense of what the thing is, right? And so that is, Fire Drake said it right there, 100%. Those people in that church are evil, not evil like, oh, they're bad or I hate them and no, they're evil. They're the living dead. I'm writing these 18 novels, and I'm in one that's right about that, right? And our hero Al Bob and his sweetie Jude and grandfather David, the elder first person, and the old crone are kind of zipping around all over the place in time and space. And I'm bringing forth in these stories this, right? I have no idea who's going to publish this. Or what I really like, there's a guy named Daniel, Dark Journalist. Fire Drake, have you ever seen Dark Journalist? He does an excellent job of taking all of the stuff, like, you know, continuation of government, the um, national security act, all the way back to Babylon, right? And he does, and he has a guy, his buddy, who is another person. Have you read Joseph P. Farrell? Because he goes into Babylon and etc. But they're trying to make the connection of that. And there's a woman who's an economist. Um, what's her name? It'll pop into my head. But she's part of the crew. And there's another guy, a very good professor, who's really a historian of political science of America within the construct of the hidden government, right? And that is the mob, basically. It's the Italian mob is just mafia is just one element of it because the Khazarian mob is also part of this mob. That's why how can Bibi just fly in and give a speech to combine Congress? Uh, so and every politician is held within the construct of kissing the ring of this um, dark or deep state, right? So Dark Journalist does it very good, but he misses. I mean, he's very good. He's very esoteric occult, and he has a lot of knowledge, and he brings forth, and he's really good asset, really good resource. And I'm sure this Hellman, I'm going to start reading. He too is an asset, right? See, I don't take anyone's anything um, straightforward. Oh, this guy's right. This is the truth. No, it's it's a weaved pastoral, um, you know, one of those things you hang up on the wall, right? And so, anyway, and every 100 years to 1,000 years, the millennium. That's why everyone was going on about the millennium and the computers are going to crash and it's going to end of times, blah blah blah. Well, in another dimension, that did happen, right? And the same thing with 2012. Whitley Strieber um, is a good friend, and along with Art Bell, and those guys did more to bring forth the UFO, the what's going on kind of thing within the modern media, right? Art Bell had his radio show, Coast to Coast, that what's his name took over, and eh, I mean, art was art. That was the beauty of Art Bell, was that he was coming from his heart all the time. The guy now, and that's why he's there. He was put there because they didn't want to just get rid of Coast to Coast because it was a good access point to dump propaganda into the general public, especially whack jobs who, believe in, what do you call those things? Conspiracy theories. Let's see. Hey, Rubis, long time. Hope you're well. Hey, Al. So yes, Rubis, what are you thinking of all of this? Right? Like I said, fire drakes um, live backwards is evil. That, and we're living in an evil world, and it's this corrupted magic of syntax, of jargon, of grammar. That's why when I write, I destroy grammar and spelling. Right? You know, because when I started to write, I didn't realize that I was channeling this. I thought I just couldn't spell or write until this one, theologian said, Al, you're just not illiterate. You're what did he call me? A judge. And see, that's uh, this church group was going on and on about Diana, who was a judge that's mentioned in the Torah, and she was one of the high judges, and he couldn't get around that she was a judge, right? Because he was a policeman, and only men could be judges, even though that's not true. And I tried to explain that judge didn't mean what we think the word judge means. Judge in that time was we had people who were um, people who talked to God, right? Then there were people who were informed by God's word, right? And those were the judges. And so they dealt with the everyday stuff of rabbi was actually, because in the temple there was a rabbi, a priest, there were Pharisees, and there was three or four other, and there were judges, and a number of those things were women too. This world is an act of consumption where nothing of importance dies. That's what I think. Kindergarten for the soul on its way to the goal. I like that. And that's I'm for agreements. That's why we aren't this, and we aren't any of this, right? Um, but we have to, my whole shtick, or not whole, but one of my main shticks is conscious intent. When we're living in this world, thinking that we're running by rules and things set down by governments and religions, that's evil, right? And we live in this, as Jay says, this is kindergarten. So all of the stuff we're getting is like, what kind of books do kindergartners get? That's what got right now. Now you bring that. If I were to bring that concept to any of the churches I go to, they get quite upset with. I mean, one, I'm not even close to that. All I'm constantly saying, like, when the one point where we can say something is when we can pray for something, right? Everyone can. I want to pray for my hemorrhoids. Yeah, everyone can please pray for my hemorrhoids. Having said that, life is a priceless gift. Very important. Yes, I. And that's why we have to live it in conscious intent, in connection with love's co-creation. Every act we do has to be constantly intent with how we are interacting with love's co-creation, with the creator's compact we have, right? So, and God had, Jesus is not Jesus. Jews, Hebrews God, they had this, compact, and the Jews were constantly breaking it, driving poor God nuts, and that's why he kept calling. It didn't, call them Jews, called them Israel. After Moses, he called them Israel, right? And that was like his girlfriend, Israel, and she's stealing his cigarettes and loose change, So, uh, so we got three people here. We got two good live chatters going, Fire Drake and Jay. So okay, I've thrown out a few things. Let's have it's like ping pong. Let's have a little. What do you think about what I just said there? You know, and like I said, all of these, the first few moments that I played was, some propagandistic thing on YouTube about what's going on in Ukraine, right? And when this first started, everyone said, "Oh, this could be over in 2 weeks." Blah blah blah. I said, "No, this is a scripted um, play. This is like a Greek tragedy, right? And it's going to end up in a nuclear exchange with NATO, and it's going to be and killing millions, maybe a billion, and it will be that shock thing that we had. We had the shock thing of 9/11. So what did we get? We got Homeland Security, our own FSB, watching and listening to everything we say, right? But Americans are too stupid to realize that, so they don't care. So they can say, so the only way they can be manipulated is through this lion's gate of propaganda on every flavor imaginable, right? Well, that's complicated and really doesn't, it's not the bang for the buck. Bang for the buck is that kind of war, and a similar war, close to biblical, in Israel, but these people who go, oh, well, no, it's not. The end times ain't coming soon because you gotta have um, the temple rebuilt. The Hebrew temple built on the mound, and what's there but this big black box that's the Muslim temple. Meaning, you got to get rid of that before you can build the other thing, right? A very specific architectural definition. And part of it is not even understood. I've talked to physicists about it. They're thinking about the physics world is talking about quarks and you know bosons and real physicists are talking about stuff like that. Because most of them are Jewish. So anyway, what do you guys think here? Evil lived, devil lived. There are so many clues in the English language. Yeah, immigration, imagination, images in action, image in action without get to get to see. Yep, yep. Yes. Like I keep saying, all of this is an illusion. There is no substance to any of this, right? and and well, that's why we have to have, you know, conscious intent. Our conscious, the only real thing there is in us, and we don't even understand it. It's not our brain. This thing up here, this cottage cheese between the ears. This is just our RAM, random access memory, right? Our heart is our CPU, central processing unit, and our gut is our hard drive, where we keep all the information, right? And so our consciousness isn't in any of this. This is just the very crass instrumentality, like a little golden fiber optic thread to our consciousness, right? That is in our superconscious, in our, our library of our, you unconscious mind, you know. And anyway, where's the Akashic record? That's kind of our consciousness. The mind of God. Ocean stands still. Crazy people have a minute that's running. Yep, exactly. So Anyway, I'm not moving that over there. I get in trouble if I move the cursor even close to what you guys are saying. I might hit the wrong button. I really don't know what I'm doing. But I love you guys. And I love all those who try. And that's really all that takes. That's all God wants us to do is try, you know. The mind of God. That's our consciousness, the mind of God. The ocean that stands still. Yep. That's our consciousness. It's not this liquid thing that's bouncing around between my ears. No, it's none of that. So let us be lucid in our going into state. And going into state is just being conscious of your breath. And when you breathe in the prana of God's unconditional love. That's what animates this avatar here. The radio receiver is not the signal. Yep. So that's all this is. You know, we are the avatar. We are the radio receiver. At best, we are setting. We're not. You know, the signal. It's a echo of the signal that we're getting, right? And that echo is like radar or sonar. It's like giving us a perspective. But if we aren't there consciously in co-creation with God's love, we really are, kind of not there. And so I'm just going to go to church in the weeks to come, where I'm just going to go and sit in front and say nothing. Just sit there and pray. And I will have a conscious intent to bring God's unconditional love to everyone in that church, all three of those churches. The Southern Baptist one are the little more scared. The Methodist we own everything. I don't care what you say. You're kind of fun. Okay. But the Catholic Church is, well, we're Catholic, so even though you're on a different wavelength, you're still one of us. And so those two kind of Catholics and the Methodists kind of not ignore me. They like me. They appreciate certain elements of what I say and do. It's the Baptists who are scared because they're scared that their population will listen to what I say. And there goes their business plan, their position of power. And that's pretty much religion and politics and institutions, in a nutshell. They're not consciously intent connected to love's co-creation. It's not motivating. I mean, otherwise, they wouldn't be doing. We wouldn't have the economic collapses. We wouldn't have the disease. We wouldn't have the war. We wouldn't have the violence. We wouldn't have the individual self-hate. Pretty much everyone in these churches hate themselves, And why is America obese? Weight, I weighed 400, and I almost weighed 500 pounds, Let's see what you're saying here. Baba stated that in this sphere, most people are as if they were dead compared to reality. But we have to start somewhere. This is what your life, an illusion, must experience and endure. Exactly. Right? Total, and that's why conscious intent of love's co-creation is that moving forward, that forward movement, that step. And by instead of doing all these other rituals that religions and governments and banks and institutions weigh upon us. Just having that individual, you know, intimate relationship with um, God's love, right? Baba's love. Love, I'm just going to stop using the word God and just say, unconditional love, right? You know, so anyway, so yes, so we're doing great stuff here. Now, I'm being the Aquarian I am. I've spent my whole life fixing things, right? And God has been telling me, no, you've done enough of that. Just go amongst the people and tell your stories and talk to them and see what it is, right? Give them that kind of inspiration. Inspiration can be on their part, anxiety over you or frustration about you, but that's not what I have to worry about. Those are tools, So, but we still have to be active, and we kind of have to be active in community. And that's why I'm drawn to churches because it is community, and I interact with it very well. And then, the minister and the oligarchy of the church gets their nose out of a joint. So anyway, um, because I walk amongst my fellow fellowshippers, um, relaxed and happy to be there, and all the rest. So that's what I'm going to do, right? Yet, folks, but I did all kinds of getting homeless people homed, hungry people fed, all of those things, right? And I see churches um, doing this as an obligation rather than fellowship and appreciation of the people who are homeless and starving. Yeah, those churches don't realize these people are doing this for the church people. Right? I mean, the homeless people. Why are they homeless? I mean, I've worked with the homeless for 40, 50 years, and it's people. How can you understand these people? They walk through the door. Anyway, um, and maybe I'll come back later in the afternoon. I still want to make one more church. It's 12:29. Yeah. So this was good. Talk to your friends. I mean, start groups of people that have these kind of conversations right there in your communities, right? See who needs help, right? And don't go to the government. See what you can do just talking to people. That's what I do all the time. I'm in Walmart, I'm in the supermarket, I'm anywhere. I talk to people. I talk to the bureaucrats who are trying to like cut the safety net. I talk to them about love, right? And so if we all did that, the world would change. If a handful of us did this, then more people would do it and then the world would change. And not be scared about who's going to be president or any of the above. They're all idiots. Sheldon review. But you have to love them for being idiots. I know I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. Whatever derogatory word you want to use to describe me, I fit that bill. I really do. You know, but I don't hate myself. You know, and I don't create a false god of my ego. That people like Donald Trump. Donald Trump has great. He's doing great things because he's a wrecking ball to all of this. In the no matter what he does, he's wrecking this place, right? Oh, really? Unenlightened, closed-minded monkeys. Yes. Yep. 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 And it's again like God would say, it's not their fault. Jesus, not their fault. They don't know what they're doing. So that means that all this is like one gigantic big fun house for the few of us who are doing our best to be consciously intent to live a in communion with God's unconditional love and Jesus's unconditional forgiveness. And again, those things are so full of weighted. Again, we're talking about context of words, right? Those words I just said, you have to. I'd much rather put them in Greek. And it's really too bad no one knows who Jesus really was. And I'm going to read a Hillman guide. So I love you guys. Get more people to watch this show. Let's get on. Let's get on the. I could. I mean, there's one really good thing about having. I don't know, every time I get above 1,000 subscribers, it bounces down to 400. Right. So I'm somewhere in between 400 and 1,000 subscribers, and that's fine because that's good because it keeps me. I mean, I'm on the radar, but it's I'm allowed to do and say whatever I want to, right? Pretty much because I'm being nice and sweet, and I'm giving everyone their day in court. They can say whatever they want, and uh, promulgate pros, but nobody really listened. Now their YouTube. Let's see. I always say, if a stupid man like me gets it, why can't they? Why? Because I'll tell you why. Jay, you and I and Mr. O 09 are not scared. We don't live in fear. We don't hate ourselves or anybody else, right? Now, we are constantly being jabbed to cause our little avatar here to respond biochemically to negative inputs. But we have gotten to a point where, yeah, you can be frustrated or you can go, but no longer are you, I'm going to kill that mother. you know, I never really was there. And I'm every show, within a day, 20 people watch it, right? And I would like it if you folks who I understand, a lot of you watch this show after when it's not live, because I watch a lot of stuff. Like I would like to be able to take part of Dark Journalist's live chat because he has I mean, that's more fun to watch the live chat. You know, he really has an interesting crew commenting on his stuff. But when that show goes live, when I could do a live chat, it's like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. I have to drive to my friend's house or somebody's front yard or to a restaurant. And at least eight or the closest thing to me is 2 miles, and then the next closest is 10 miles. And I don't drive at night, even the 2 miles, right? So I can never comment on that, right? And I have no money. I mean, I'm right now after putting whatever disposable income I had at the beginning of this month into my white whale, so I can kind of get around. Because the church people kind of got sick of coming and taking me places, and then taking me out to lunch and hearing me talk about what I talk about, right? And so they got me a white whale, but I had to put about $2,200 into making it so it was safe and would get me from point A to point B. And so it's getting there. So right now I have all of I think $10 in my pocket here. Let's take a look. And this I had to look between the cracks of the couch and underneath the sandwich in the car, and so this is what I got. Dirty, funky soggy kind of money. Oh, look, a 5. Look at that. I'm rich. Yeah, okay, that's 10, 15. I got big $16 to survive on because I got to put gas in that white whale and to get anywhere, last month at the end of it, and didn't have any money for gas, so but I live in the most beautiful place. I mean, I kind of knew this was going to happen, so you know, I let God put me here. So there's no big deal with me sitting at home reading and writing, and if I need, I can walk that 2 miles to my neighbor's deck and do a show. I've done that before, especially if it's a nice day. So anyway, let's see what you guys are saying. I use YouTube. True, I have no fear. Happy to say love is the opposite of fear. No frustrations. It's all in his hands. Right, exactly. And that's it. I'm always saying, oh, God, I don't have a clue. It's, you got my back. Lindsay, go give plasma for money. Well, I have to have the cash to. There is the closest place to do plasma is about 70 miles from my front door. That's how out in the sticks I'm at, right? I'm healthy enough. Yep, I'm pretty healthy. Yep. Uh, 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 I might look into that because I'm not too scared of needles. But you guys can always throw something in my PayPal, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. I haven't used it. No one has put anything in it in a year. I'm sure it still exists, but every time virtually every time I go look at it, they want me to change my passcode and agree to this protocol or the dude awake 42 at Gmail, and I would like that. We could be mano y mano. But I enjoy our community here, the cadre. Uh, go get plasma. You sound like anyway. I won't say. But Lynn, what do you think of all that we have been saying so far? Have you read the live chat so far? Our friend O9 and Jay have been quite joyful and profligate and a good example of oh, the birds are singing in interesting ways. If I didn't know better, I would say there's an alien ship out in my friend's front yard because there are these tonals coming. Do you ever see the movie Close Encounters and the language of doo 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 doo? So, uh, worrying about maybe the winter coming, electricity didn't go off. I won't freeze to death, right? I mean, this last winter, thank God for global warming, right? And I'm in the sweet spot. We have really horrific weather has just missed us all season long. Knock on wood. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, so and we only had um, one 5-day period where it was literally 90 degrees below 0 centigrade. It was a little nippy. Now the church people, you know, came and got me and stuck me in one of their houses and took care of me for 6 days, and that was fun. And we had a really good time. You know, um, they enjoyed my stay, and then I left. Right? they coming? Anyway, so it's okay. And Lynn, you can pray for me. That would be nice. God bless Sensei Al Bob and the cadre. Um, Woodstock chimes here, and so Lynn, you can pray for me and send me love. And you can call me up on the email, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Have a nice little discourse. Um, but don't worry about me because God's got my back, right? And I'm doing whatever. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it in co-creation with God's love. Don't worry, be happy. Do both those two things. Yep. And that's how I always have like this. I had no money for 3 days. 3 days ago I had and I just kind of dug around and found this. And if I need more money, I'll dig around and find this. And if I really need some money, I will win the lottery. Right? You could pray for that one. And if I were to win the lottery, I would take that money and start doing some real good. Right? Taking art on the road. I mean, going into communities and finding the people who are artists who play music, who do painting, who sculpt, who do all of that, and bring them together and give them a place they could do it, that they could share with the rest of their community, that they could then use that to inspire what they really want to do with their community. That's what I would do. If I won the lottery, if I got like, $100 million, which is, it's that you could anything above 300 million, a zillion people are trying to win. But, 100 mil, I could do that. And we go. There's one person. Why don't we go down to the southern border? Let's go to the southern border, right? So the church feeds you well. I remember they said saved my life. Nothing long ago in Canadian winter. Well, they are there, right? Most of their food is super processed food. So for me, it's better that I don't eat that much. I don't, I got plenty of food. And I have tons of burdock and dandelions. Even the winter, I have burdock. So, I got, I have a big herb garden. I have a lot of things that can keep me alive just growing on my hill naturally. I don't do anything to it. The one thing I do it right around Halloween. I go in there with a weed whacker and I knock everything down. I take each plant up and I kind of bundle it, hang it up, and dry it out. And then I make salves and tinctures and things out of those. But they've all grown very nicely in patches of who they are, and I don't have to do anything. So that's the dynamic. So let's see. I can't hear you, and I have great internet. Check your end. Okay. Well, my little microphones, I haven't covered them up, and I don't know how to check my end. Seemingly, I'm working. Can you guys hear me? Jay, can you hear me? Oh nine. My mother, so I took care of my parents for the last 28 years of their life, right? My dad, you have to take care of us. Once he had burned all the bridges, once he burned all the bridges with my brothers and sisters because he made them work for him. And when we were kids, he made us work for him. He would, come and on Saturday. We had to get up at 7 to go to school, but on Saturday, instead of sleeping in, he would, just wake us up and have us, fix things, mow the lawn, and his new little ideas for a business, he would have us work, manufacture them, blah blah blah. We were his slaves. That's how he looked at his children. And when they grew up, and he did have a real business, a factory, he got my brothers and sisters to work there. Not on the line, but as the executive board, salespeople and running this and running that. And he treated them as shitty as he did. So, how I dealt with my father with that, because he would just come in and whip the covers off of you and drag them to the other side of the room, so they couldn't just crawl back under the thing. So I would sleep naked because he was such a freak. He just couldn't look at body parts. He couldn't. Sex was. I mean, he was stooping my mom all the time. The house was not. She was having him knock the socks. That's why we had 6 kids, and a bunch of them died. So anyway, he would come in. The first time he did this, after a couple of times he did, I said, "Fuck this guy." So because I wasn't there, I didn't grow up in that house. I didn't come back to live with my family until I was 7. So I already had a view. I already had understanding. I already interacted with humans. I wasn't scared of anything. I had respect. That's what I had. And so I basically was in bed, naked, playing with my. I hear my father coming in, and I pretend I'm asleep, but I'm got my hand. I grab my dick, and I start doing this, and he whips the things, and he screams, "Ah!" and he runs out. And he never, ever, ever came in and did that to me again, ever. So I got to sleep on Saturdays, where all my other brothers and sisters had to, and they would complain and argue and blah blah blah, blah. And when I would show up and my dad said, "Oh, go do this," and I would say, "Yes, sir, right away, sir," and I'd go up and do whatever the heck I wanted to do. I never argued with him. I never said, "You can't tell me what to do." I said, "Yes, sir, right away, sir," because he was a bird colonel, triple Virgo, right? So my mother, early on, when she got tired of listening to my father, only had 6 stories, and if you never heard them, they were great. A diversity of stories. Anyway, early on, she started to pretend she couldn't hear anything. Right? Well, when she talked to me, she could hear me fine because I was reading books, and she liked to read books and didn't do much of it. She was kind of consumed by her position as queen and smoking cigarettes and drinking Manhattans and coffee. And so that was, my mom's life. She had got what she wanted. She got, guy who's doing everything to make money, buying her jewelry. She didn't have to do anything except tell him what to do. And she's smart, so he keeps telling him things to do, and he goes up and does it, makes more money. So my father made us work on weekends. It was good discipline, but a bit harsh. I resented them for a long time. But then I grew up, right? So I never resented my parents because I was interactive immediately. I didn't like stew on anything. I figured out, what should I do with stop my father from coming in and doing this? I would make sure that when he came in, I was I was awake, naked, and masturbating, right? And that was it. So he didn't bother me until around 10 in the morning. And then he would say, "Hey, do you want to go do this? Like go shopping or do something with him?" Right? I said, "Sure, let's go do it." Right? So we go do it. Because he was fun. He was actually a fun guy. I just had to get him in the silo of being fun and not the colonel, right? And so where my brothers and sisters all fought him and dealt with him like as the colonel, right? The authoritarian. Me, we were having a good time, I'm sure Stalin had a good side to him. I'm sure Adolf Hitler was loads of fun at parties. He sure liked drugs, that was for sure. So all those guys did. And that's how they were manipulated. So how's my battery doing? I don't want to have this thing crash out. Ooh, we're almost at the end of the battery. But anyway, so my mom would always, I can't hear what you're saying. That was meaning she didn't want to hear what you were saying. We younger ones knew that. So what did my father do? He bought my mom hearing aids, and they're pretty expensive, especially in those days. But he was making money, so he buy them. And what my mom do? She would always roll things up in toilet paper, like she was always dabbing her eyes. I have her eyes. and I have her teeth. And so he would throw. He's a Virgo. He cleans everything up. So he would, throw the hearing aids away, right? Anyway, so it was just uh, interesting just to watch my family. It was kind of fun. And I always had my grandma. She was always down the street. I could always walk and stay at her place. It was no big deal, right? So, and then once we moved to uh, the North Shore near Glen Cove, and uh, what's the name of that place? Oldfield. Really beautiful. I mean, it's like like revolutionary times. Who's out there? Anyway, so and once that was, and it was the place that was, and this has been my life. So I went from you know New York City to Freeport, where my dad grew up, and my grandma and grandpa had a house there because he had another business. That was where all the oh Broadway stars and movie stars. It was right on the North Shore, and they had their big boats and Guy Lombardo, and so it's a big hip place in the 20s. And so my grandparents had a house there, and when then my dad went off to the Air Force and married my mom and came back, and they were still in the Air Force, and then she says, okay, time to quit. You're never going to be a general, so you got to make some money. So he did, and we got a house. First, a little box before I was born. Then I was born. I got a bigger house, and that's the one I went to at 7. And we didn't last there more than a year because that nun killed me. And I stayed another 2 years with the Mariners. I also 1961. My That's where I learned Greek with the Mariners. Greek, Latin. Um, I learned speech pathology, you know, linguistics. Um, I just like I'm like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. This is what I'm learning, right? So I didn't go to public school, right? I didn't go to first, second, and third grade. I got murdered in first grade, and so when I came back, I should have gone into fourth grade, but I hadn't been in grammar school at all. And this was a brand spanking new school, and so they said, well, he's right on the edge. He's born, he's an Aquarian, so he could. Why don't we start him in third grade, right? And we'll see how he goes. And that way, he's not stressed out. Um, he seems to be able to read. Doesn't speak too well. We don't know what he's a stutter, blah blah blah. But I learned speech pathology. I learned my jaw got broke. My esophagus got crushed. It still is. I mean, I breathe in a different way than most of you. So I was taught the kind of breath that radio announcers do. They take big breaths. That's why you're hearing them talk, and then you hear this, and they do like, whoop, and I had to do it in a different way to get my larynx to work. And so it took me some time. I knew that I was practicing. Nobody, but I was because had to breathe in enough to be able to push out the stuff. So I had to think consciously about that. Then I wasn't thinking consciously about what I was going to say, right? So I was taught to think about the linguistics person told me how to think about the message I wanted to get across, to put it down and put it in tape up here in the RAM, right? And then once I got the breathing down, I could just hit the play button, and that's why I do what I do, right? But I really didn't get that down until I was about 12. So when I showed up at school, I was quiet. I was always reading a book, right? So he reads. But when they said, read out loud, so, oh, he can't read. And so I would say, so they kind of left me alone. And I could do algebra, I could do geometry. There was a math teacher there So that school went up to sixth grade, and so he was a great physicist and math teacher. He loved teaching kids, right? So he would teach us geometry in fourth grade. So he was my go to high school, and I could do proofs all day long, right? And he was like, and they were. I mean, I had an architect's table with the thing that you can move that arm that you can make straight lines in any angle you want. So I could just dial whatever angle and do the proof, right? And so for homework, I could knock out. And I said, I want you to give me a month's worth of what you want us to do, and write it down, right? And I'm going to, you know, do all the proofs, do all the equations, and then do a summary of who the Greek mathematician was. And then I want to give that story to the class so I can practice talking. And he loved me. He was like, because by the time I hit fourth grade, I could talk relatively well. And so, and my handwriting wasn't really good because I still couldn't see, right? I could do math all day long. It was like I was channeling it, but writing, and not until a keyboard came around that I could really write. And so, anyway, um, by the time I got to that place, that was it. I had nothing to do with my family, because I was always I had a cadre, right? A crew. We called ourselves a crew, and we were. What happened was they built a brand new because it was just like what's happening here. This was a very rural part of Long Island that was all farms and baymen, fishermen, and so Long Island had the greatest clans, mussels, you name it, they had it until overpopulation, pollution, and everything's dead. So uh, when I got there, it was still all farmland, and farmers would develop a little cul-de-sac of their property that they didn't really use, and they put a road up there, and they built a few houses, and they sold it. So they weren't like these gigantic mammoth housing communities with 1,000 houses. It's like 4 or 5, right? And they were popping up here, there, all over this farmland because the farmer guys were making some almost better money doing that, and they were getting close to that. But not only farms were out there, it was like where all the really rich people, um, you know, that Glenda and what's his name hung out with, and they wrote the Great Gatsby about. Those kind of people out of states were out there, like Hamptons. But it wasn't just the Hamptons, Southampton, and then Oldfield was like old money. Southampton was like new wealth, right? So anyway, we were living amongst that. So there were really old wealth people, big estates, like 200-300 acres, big estates, and farms. And so people coming on these little cul-de-sacs. So they had little red schoolhouses for the farm kids, but then that wasn't quite working. So what they did was the thing that was the big high school, they turned into a grammar school that was built like maybe in the 50s, and then they built George Jetson Middle School and high school right next to each other, right, with great facilities, unbelievable facilities, right? Band, theater, art, you name it, we had it, right? And so grammar school was still, it was like that going from the Little Red Schoolhouse to George Jetson, right? So the school, when I showed up, there were 4 of these Little Red Schoolhouses and they had annexes. So there were about 12 pods of kids who had been going to school with each other. And then they were all stuck into this, what had been the high school. And so they were cliques, right? And so there were 12 cliques, like the Sharks and the Jets and then there were about 10 of us who, like me, came from someplace else and just moved there and had no history with that place. So when I said, "Can I sit down here? Will you guys have lunch?" No, right? No, no. And then I sat down at a table all by myself, and that's no big deal. Got out my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and start looking at the book I was reading, and this guy in a suit sits down. It looks like a short version of James Bond. and there was J.P. Hoagland, and he's a little autistic, and he sits down and he goes, "Are you new here too?" I said, "Yep." I said, "They won't let you sit." He goes, "Yep." "Can I eat with you?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Come on, have a seat." And he goes, "Is that a peanut butter jelly sandwich?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I love it. And I goes, "What do you got for lunch?" And he had a picnic basket, right? And he shoves it over to me, and there's this unbelievable homemade bread on, you know, vegetables grown in the garden, meatloaf sandwich with potato salad and cookies and, macaroni salad and a juice drink, right? And JB goes, "You want to trade lunches?" Yeah, baby. Here's my. And so I said, "Wow, this is great food." She said, "Yeah, well, I have it all the time. I never get a peanut butter. I asked my mom for peanut. She says I need this." And so I'm eating that. I said, "Wow, JP, I like. We can trade anytime." Anyway, he goes, "You want to see my gun?" Right? He pulls out. He has a Walter PBK. That's why he's looking like 007. And he pulls out this little box, pulls out the silk thing, puts it on there, puts the gun on it, takes it apart, cleans it, puts it back together. He has bullets in the clip. He has two clips, like he's going to fend off somebody. And we're in the middle of the cafeteria, and no one anything. The teachers are smoking. I mean, this is when you could, the whole cafeteria's in the basement. It's like full of, smoke. So it's like, really? So said that was, and he goes, "Are you my friend?" I said, "Yeah." "You're my best friend?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I've never had a best friend. Do you want to come home with me?" I said, I said, "Yeah." "Can your mom drive me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You got a phone?" "Yeah." So, instead of getting on the bus and spending an hour and a half on the bus, we this high school is kind of in the town of North Shore, Glen Cove, I think. Um, and so, because the middle school on the other hand was more near um, other more ritzier part of Glen Cove. Anyway, so it's only a 5 block walk, nice walk through town. I'm checking the town. I haven't checked the town out. We go into the store that has the comic books, right? It's got comic books, and it's also got these like dime store novels, and it's got the Playboys. So anyway, we're looking at that, and the guy does, he doesn't even bother looking at us. So if you wanted to pick up a Playboy and look at it, you could. He's not gonna. Hey, put that down. Or if you're gonna read, there were chairs in there. You could take if you didn't mess it up, you could take the comic book and read it. Anyway, so we go in there and just take a slight glance, and then we go over to this other store that's kind of like almost like what a bodega is in a city. Um, and it's kind of across from the Long Island station. So guys can go in there and get coffee and a Danish or something, and maybe a sandwich or whatever else, cigarettes, whatever. So we check that out, and then we get home and we walk into his house. Nice house, beautiful lawn, flowers, everything's in place, gorgeous. Donna Reed kind of house. We go there, and his mother's Donna Reed, right? Apron. She's wearing like an evening gown, right? And she's cooking. She's at the stove singing, and we coming. Oh, and she turns around. She goes, "Oh, you brought a friend. How great!" And she's just ecstatic because her son is a little autistic, and he's obviously can put people off, especially when he takes the gun out. Anyway, so but I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Al. Where are you from?" And I give her the whole story, and she's like, "Oh, this is great. Finally, my son has a male friend who isn't worse off than he is. He's kind of fun, kind of interesting, very happy, go lucky. I like this guy." So she goes, "Boys, I'm making some pastries," and I'm like fixated on her breasts, and she has a bandolero, bullets crossing her breasts, and she has two pearl-handled 45s that were given to her father by George Patton. And I'm like, so this whole family is gaga for guns. Their great grandfather started the NRA, right? So I got to know guns and gun safety and how to shoot because I spent almost 6 years with this family, and I would go to the range, I would go to the gun camp, I would go to and these guys, put this is 1960s, early, put the plugs in our ears and the muffins on our heads, and gun safety, right? And you don't shoot your gun. You don't use your gun unless you're going to use it, right? And the only place you should be using it is either to hunt or at the range, or and we were told, the gun isn't really needed to protect the house, right? Because if you can't talk whatever out of harm's way, then maybe the gun. But that's the last. Right? You don't need, because you are not going to pick that gun and point it at someone unless you're going to kill them. Period. So you're not going to pick that gun up. Period. You're not going to wear it on your vest. Period. You might have it, concealed, but you're not showing it out like I'm tough, I'm a bully, I'm this. Now in home, if it gets you up to wear that bandolier and those 245s while you're cooking, apple strudel, not a problem. And they had like an armory downstairs. So that's JP. And then the next day, these three girls worked up: Lisa Stiles, Kim Romano, and Debbie Soul. And they were all daughters of mobsters like Tony Soprano. And each of these girls grew up with each other because these guys were in the same crew. That's where we got the term crew. And and that these daughters were the only children they had, um, because their mothers kind of freaked out and left the daughter with the father, right? So first thing father does is like treat the little girl like, I love you, honey, baby. You're the girl in my life, the only girl in my life, but you're also my son because you're gonna have to take up whatever son I would have had position, right? So you're my loving daughter. I love you. I love when you put teach you everything, right? Because it's only fair you learn everything, not just girly stuff, but everything, right? So, what did these guys do? Because they're all buddies. This one guy finds, a jujitsu school, right? A martial arts school, and these girls go start. He goes in there. We have there's three of us, and we all have daughters, and they're about two. What's the time that they should start training with you? He goes, now. So by the time these girls got to third grade, you know, they were black belts. They could take you apart. If you were like 6 foot tall, 280 pounds, they would put you on your back. So they come over and he goes, everyone here sucks. Can we sit at your table? You look interesting. And JP is like, yeah, ladies, please. What's your names? And so, we became the. So after that meal, and JP had the basket, and so I said, I'm not going to hog everything. JP's gaga over because these girls didn't have anything. Her father, please. So we split up. It was like the fish and the loaves. There was way more food. Everyone got something great, and and Kim said, "We're the crew, and anyone fucks with us." And this is what she said: "Anyone fucks with us, we're going to take care of them." And she looks at JP, and JP goes, "You want to see my gun?" And so these girls know guns too. And so when the Hogans met the Tony Soprano crew, they were right in with them and they would go. The Italian mobster crew would go to all the NRA, hoedowns and dances, and everyone's wearing a gun and shooting, and the mobsters were the worst shooters, right? They got better, but it was like amazing, right? So we have our own, like, as a Constitution, Second Amendment, your own organized militia, and we had it. That was it. We're getting close to where I have to skip out here, so I'll finish the story. So the three girls. Then there was Matty Law, and he's blacker than coal. We're the '60s. We're integrating. We out of a school of 1,800. We have one black boy, and we treat him because he's always well dressed and well mannered, and He's an amazing athlete and top 10 student, and his father is a lawyer, and his grandfather is a judge. So yes, we can respect this one black boy and his sisters. He had two sisters, and they were very girly, right? And they were so girly they outgirled the very girly crew, right? And they were dynamite on skipping rope and you know being gymnasts. And all the girly girls, by the time they got to middle school, they wanted to. Our gym guy was getting everyone to be what they were going to be once they hit middle school and high school, right? So he was the girls gymnasts, right? And the black girls were far the best. This one, Carol, Carol, Carol and Christine, um, could walk do the rope just with her hands. She would just boop, 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 and go to the top. And the gym teacher was like, and she could do, cartwheels, somersaults, like the thing they do on the mat, zing, boom, boom, bada, bing, bada, boom, bam, boom. She could do that just for fun, you know. And so, and then there were the Chos, who were also very girly girls, and one of them was Christine. So in the girly girl crew, there was two Christines, Chinese Christine and Black Christine. C and B was what they were known as. So so the girly girls, who were those girls, had an ancillary that our crew was okay. They're okay. The rest suck, but those guys, they're our brothers and sisters, so they're okay, and they're doing their own. They're like us, and they're kind of can almost do the stuff we do. They're just not that into it because they're into other stuff. And so the girls and Maddie and J.P. Hoagland. Who else was there? Vincent Salvatore, the other Italian, and we were all into science, really. And Vincent Salvatore and Vincent Tufo, the two Vinnies. And one wanted to be a teacher, his mother, the other was a dentist, and the other wanted to be in the Merchant Marines, but he was as short as JP, and he stayed short. Like when we hit sixth grade, we all started to grow. The girls already grew. I mean, they look like women, and so we would never, after, since our lunch was going to be J.P. Hoagland's mother's thing. And when I told her that next day what happened, and so we brought all the kids, our crew would go to J.P. Mom's home and she would have something unbelievable ready. We'd go shoot guns. And then she would drive everybody out to my neighborhood, which was just open country, right? And next to us was this guy named John Anderson who had a gigantic estate. He Mead Paper Company, so he was a zillionaire, and everyone in his family was dead. He was in his 70s, and he had dogs and horses and everything, and he kept all those people to be like his family that he could talk to, and he had you know, maids and butlers and chefs. And one day, because we would go into and just play, and it was like Wonderland there. And it was the girl whose father did the horses, Emily. She was the bee's knees. The girls loved her. Well, we all loved her, and there were horses. She taught us all how to ride horse, right? And then there was Desmond, whose father did the dog thing, and they had whippets, and they had a zillion whippets, and we would, his father hired us all to clean out the dog stalls, and we got paid. We got $30 a week, and in 1962, $30 a week. It's like our brothers and sisters sure didn't have that kind of cash, so we had the best of all. It was like the best of times, the worst of times, the Vietnam War. Anyway, but nobody knew about that then. And uh, this is about 62, and so we're having really good times. And they had a pool, right? And so the chauffeur would take us. He would come and tell either Desmond or Emily, I'm taking Mr. Anderson somewhere, so why don't you guys go jump in the summertime, go jump in the pool. And so we did. And then Mr. Anderson saw us swimming in the pool one day. He came out and said, "Hey, kids." And we came up and we knew who he was. And we were like, he was like grandpa, right? And so he started coming out, reading the newspaper and having his tea and crumpets. And the cook and the butler would bring out goodies for us too. So it's great, right? And so got to know him, and so I'm seeing what he's reading, and we're talking about stuff, and I'm in the third grade or fourth grade, 72, yeah, fourth grade, and so 62, fourth grade. So I'm maybe even I'm not quite sure what grade I was in. At least fourth, if not fifth. I can't remember Mr. Diamond. Anyway, so long story. I get takes me into his library. He goes, when you're not wet, you can come in here anytime and read whatever you want to, right? And I would. And he would be there reading, and we would talk about all kinds of, I've already read a lot of stuff, a lot of classics. And he was a classic, when he went to Princeton, he was a classic kind of guy. And so we were talking about Greek and Roman, and he was amazed that I freaking could read Greek in the fourth grade, And so I could read Greek, but I didn't read it. I mean, I could barely read. There was a thing between my eyes and my mouth. They weren't quite connected. And so reading something, I could read it and understand it, but to read it literally, word for word, nah, I couldn't do it. So I would read it and then I would say what I thought it was, right? And we talk about it. He loved that. He loved the fact that I could read it and then talk about it, right? And so he loved that. So we had a great old time. And so for the next, all the way to eighth grade, it was the best of times. I had this great crew. My parents built a pool in their yard, and please, so they were all over the place. Oh, there she is. Ah, they're back. So I'll say goodbye, and hope you guys are doing well.